Hi everyone, my name is Ricardo. I'm a business management lecturer, and today we're going to look at the different environments that organizations operate within. Those three environments are the micro environment, the market environment, and then the macro environment. If we look at the first environment and we talk about the micro environment, well, what exactly is the micro environment? The micro environment is really looking at the internal capabilities and resources of an organization. Yeah, we're really looking at the internal strengths and the internal weaknesses of an organization. Now, I know you're thinking weakness, are we really going to focus on that? Well, actually it is quite critical that we acknowledge our weaknesses. We've probably all seen a movie where somebody stands up in a kind of a circle, a group, and says, "Hi, my name's Ricardo and I'm an alcoholic." Why is that so important? The whole idea around this is actually an acknowledgement of an issue, a problem. And so organizations need to do the same thing. They need to acknowledge their shortcomings. Because the fact is, if we can acknowledge our shortcomings, well, then we can actually do something about it. We are not ignorant, we are not blindsided by our shortcomings. So, the fact that we know our strengths, well, how do we maximize what we are good at? And potentially, what may we be good at? Well, we could have some intellectual property. If you are a pharmaceutical company, you could have registered patents. If you are in technology as well, again, you could have some processes or software that is licensed. That would give you a competitive advantage. What's important to understand, this is the heartbeat of the organization. The stuff that you are really good at and stuff that will give you a competitive advantage. If we move on to the second environment, as I mentioned, the market environment, well, yeah, what are the factors that we look at? Well, we're looking at our customers, competitors, suppliers, we're looking at the labor force in essence. All of these elements interact with the organization. Now, this type of environment we don't have full control of. We have some element of control over. We can negotiate with our customers, with our suppliers. We can potentially want to try and get better prices. We can negotiate with trade unions in terms of labor relation process. So we have some level of influence, but not complete control. The third element is looking at the macro environment. The macro environment, we tend to refer to the acronym PESTEL. PESTEL standing for political, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal. Now, these 6 factors, let's unpack them in a little bit more detail. Let's take the first one, political. Well, what do I mean by political? Well, just as the word kind of says, a political decision, one taken by a ruling party or a president, could have impact on your business. Again, remember, you cannot control what government or politicians say, but it will have impact. So let's use an example of a short while back. When then President Zuma fired Finance Minister Nene, the market responded extremely negatively. We saw the rand drop significantly, and so much so that it had massive impact on the economy. What's important to note is that these elements are also interrelated. So a political decision will have impact on the economy, which ultimately has impact on your business as well. If we look at economical factors, well, yeah, we're talking about interest rates, the GDP, the growth of the economy, the rand-dollar exchange rate. Now let's unpack that a little bit further. What do I mean by how does the rand-dollar affect my business? Well, if you are exporting goods, having a weak currency, a weak rand, is actually good for your business, because that means that foreign markets or foreign customers can get more value for their dollars in rand terms. The inverse is also true. If I am trying to import goods and paying in dollar terms, while having a weak rand, that means that these costs for these items or services are going to cost me substantially more than what I had initially anticipated before the rand basically dropped. If I look at the third element in terms of social, well, with social elements, we look at factors like unemployment rates, levels of education, levels of skill. We look at even factors like crime. Now, most of us may think crime is a bad thing. Let's not kid ourselves. Yes, it is bad. But guess what? If you are ADT or Chubb or in any of the security services, crime is actually good for your business. The fact that there is crime means there's a demand for your services. Whether you need guards, armed response, alarm systems in your businesses or in your homes, there's a constant demand for your product or service. Therefore, it is very good for your business. If we look at the fourth element, should I say, in terms of technology, well, I think the easiest and best example here is to think about Uber. How did Uber shake up the taxi industry? Now, initially, your taxi industry was probably dominated by a few players, the likes of Rose's Taxi and Maxi Taxi. I'm talking the metered taxi services as opposed to traditional combi taxi services. Now, those traditional taxi drivers were hanging out around airports and Gautrain stations, waiting for somebody to need their services. But now, through the use of an app, anyone can really just kind of gain these services, and within convenience and as well as from a safety perspective, we know exactly who my driver is. We know they are 2 minutes away, and this is more beneficial for the consumer, for the customer. Yes, this has rattled the market, so much so that we've seen taxi drivers losing their life as taxi wars kind of fight or these taxi wars kind of happen. This isn't unique to South Africa. This is played out in the US and Europe. That is the power of technology and how it can rattle a market. The fifth element there, if we look at environmental factors, well, anything relating to the environment, whether it be the drought of the recent drought that we had, the impact of how that has impacted farmers in the Western Cape. I read an article where their production was down 30% as a result of drought. That, of course, you cannot control the environment, but it's going to have impact on your business. Likewise, if you're a hotel company and you have guests coming into your hotel wanting all the kind of conveniences and amenities and so forth, and now you're telling them, well, please limit your showers, we're not changing your linen every day because we're not doing laundry every day. This has impact on your business and you need to be mindful. Another idea that comes to mind, or another thought should I say, is if you think about 3 or 4 years back, the scandal that VW was caught up in terms of CO2 emissions. This was an environmental factor. They were responsible to respond to eliminate their CO2 emissions, and the fact that they weren't, that all they did was manipulate the readings of those CO2 emissions. And then once that kind of came out, that had significant impact on the business. We saw the share price drop, we saw the CEO in Germany step down, again, as a result of environmental factors that VW did not comply with and tried to manipulate, meant impact on their business. The last element, we look at a legal perspective, and what we mean by legal is anything from law or legality in a sense. So think about if you are I&J. Your business is also regulated by law in terms of fishing quotas. You can't just catch as many fish in the sea that you would like. If we think about high data costs, we all bitch and moan about high data costs, but in reality, it is a legal matter that prevents true competition in the market, which would drive prices down. ICASA regulate the market, and they are not currently issuing any additional licenses to other cell phone operators. And the reason for this is going way back into the mid-90s, where Vodacom and MTN, in particular the first two operators in South Africa, needed to make massive investments into infrastructure, putting up cell phone towers right across the country. And part of those negotiations with the regulator was to protect their market and their investment. And so this period of time, exactly how long it is, I'm not sure, their market is protected. And therefore, as I mentioned, ICASA is not issuing any new additional licenses. So that kind of covers those 6 points. So in recap, let's go and have a look at those 3 elements again. So the first, environment, looking at the micro, understanding that this is our strengths and our weaknesses, things that we as an organization can control. The second, environment, looking at the market environment. Here it's important to understand that here we have some level of influence, but not complete influence. We're looking at factors around customers, suppliers, competitors, labor force, and so forth. And lastly, looking at the market environment, we're looking at PESTEL. We're looking at political, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors. I hope that this has helped you in your studies and that you can now better understand these 3 environments.